corner, it read, Professor Ward Connors, Treasure Hunter. I know him. He looks great, I admitted. Sean Connery, watch out. My father was as distinguished as ever with his short white hair and close-cut beard. He sat in a mahogany chair against the backdrop of my parents' enormous library, sporting a captain's blazer over a gray turtleneck sweater. The host, Greg Norton, said, I'm sure everyone in America wants to know. How does one become a treasure hunter? The camera zoomed in on my father's face, and he flashed his familiar, charming smile. I got a metal detector for my 10th birthday. There were some stray quarters in the yard. I scrounged them up and I was hooked. The story wasn't true, of course, but it didn't matter. My father is a master of showmanship. He went on to explain that he obtained a degree in archaeology before working as an apprentice on several fishing boats and, later, wreck dives. He reminisced about the first dive he went on with my mother and waxed poetic about how that led to the discovery of the San Arabella. He forgot to mention that it took at least a decade for them to find anything at all. The San Arabella was a Spanish ship, missing for centuries, the host said. That find came with a huge payout. It made you one of the most famous treasure hunters in the country. More than one person in the room sneaked a look at me, and I shift, uncomfortable. My friends would certainly Google the San Arabella that night, if they weren't already doing it right there in my living room. Yes. My father looked pleased with himself. The San Arabella was quite the coup. Your grandfather was also a ship captain, the host said. My father's expression became guarded. He was indeed. Now, if I could, Captain Fitzy Connors was responsible for a very large shipwreck, the host said. A lot of men lost their lives. Libby shot me a nervous look. In general, my father loved talking about treasure hunting and his work as a ship captain. But after years spent trying to clear his grandfather's name, he didn't talk about Captain Fitzy with anyone. Sure enough, his tone turned low and dangerous. The weather caused that wreck, he said. It was nobody's fault. What about the missing treasure? The host persisted. I bit my lip. If Greg Norton valued his hair plugs, he'd drop this line of questioning. When my father didn't answer, the host continued. If that treasure is still out there, I'm surprised one of the most famous treasure hunters in the country hasn't found it yet. Have you looked? I'm not discussing that, my father growled. And this interview is over. I jumped as he ripped the microphone out of his lapel and stormed out of the view of the camera. The show cut to commercial break, and an awkward silence filled the room. Snap! Libby lifted her glass in a toast. Your father shut him down. Everyone laughed and applauded. Libby patted me on the knee and got up for more wine. I gave her a grateful look. Is that true? Todd turned to me. About your great-grandfather? Which part? I asked, fiddling with the diamond stud in my ear. To my relief, 2 of his fellow accountants cut in to coordinate a golf game. I escaped and headed to the dining room to wrap up leftovers. Armed with foil and a fat Sharpie, I wrote today's date on Post-it notes and stuck them to each dish, hoping to look industrious instead of upset. The interviewer had made my father seem grumpy and uncooperative, which was hardly the case. I wasn't sure what to think. I had texted with my mother after my parents filmed the interviews, and she said everything went fine. The theme music rang out, and Libby paused the show. Dawn, it's back on! Go ahead, I called. I'm watching. I was wondering if I should sneak off to call my parents when Greg Norton's voice boomed through the room, measured and dramatic over a lilt of mysterious music. It wasn't a surprise to us that Professor Ward Connors ended our conversation when we began to dig into the history of his family. I set down the Sharpie. The host stood on the beach of Starlight Cove,